We are one day away from contracts actually being able to be signed. So what do we make of the Orlando Magic's offseason as it stands? And what are the limits of continuity? We'll talk about all that on today's episode of Locked On Magic.
You are Locked On Magic, your daily Orlando Magic podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And you are indeed Locked On Magic. Today is July 4th. It will be July 5th, 2024. I hope everyone had a very happy Independence Day. I was able to get some fireworks off. You may hear some of the background here as I'm recording this. On today's episode, my name is, of course, Philip Rossman-Reich. I'm the senior writer over at OrlandoMagicDaily.com. You can find me on Twitter at PhilipRR_OMD. On today's episode of Locked On Magic, we're going to recap what the Magic did this offseason, what some of the reactions are to it, and why the Magic had a successful offseason, but still left some things on the table. We'll talk a little bit about the limits of continuity, some issues that I think might arise this year, plus where the holes still are on the roster. We're going to get to that. We're going to get to all of that coming up here in just a moment. But first, we want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day, no matter when you listen to us, whether it's first thing in the morning, whether it's right when we upload. We truly appreciate you making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. Remember, there's a great Locked On podcast covering every single team in the NBA. Just search for Locked On and the team you're looking for, the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. I think if most of us looked at the Orlando Magic's offseason and the potential of this offseason, a lot of us, and this is myself included, would not have predicted that this is what the Magic were going to do. I had the Magic adding 3 new players. I will fully admit this. I had them at least adding 2 new players through free agency and really beginning to invest some money. Getting Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is not a super surprise. I know some people were maybe a little disappointed at the level of free agent. There's still a little bit of sticker shock at what the price is and having to explain, like, no, this is the price of signing a starter these days. You got to spend a little bit of money, and the salary cap is a new deal now. It's a much different animal now. The Kentavious Caldwell-Pope signing was, at the end of the day, that was pretty expected. I think a lot of us understood that Paul George was not going to come here. And that was, whether the Magic were being used as leverage, whether the Magic were okay being used as leverage, or whatever the case may be, Paul George wasn't the answer. Klay Thompson certainly was a name, but there were reasons to be skeptical. And I would have done I would have been willing to go for it with Klay Thompson too. But overall, it felt like a safe offseason for Orlando. They went out, they got a starting level guard, which was the number one priority for this team, in Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. And he's going to make this team better. Like I hate saying this, especially since Gary Harris is still on the team. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope does everything Gary Harris does, but better. So the Magic are a better team today than they were yesterday, or they will be Saturday than they were earlier. On top of that, the Magic then brought back all of their own depth. And when we look at, again, y'all probably hate me for saying this, and I get it. So much of this summer is really about setting the table up for the next trade. And we're still getting the final numbers and what these contracts look like. The Magic are far more set up to make a major trade now than they were back at the deadline, back on draft night. The Magic are in a better spot to make trades today than they were before. And so in that sense, this summer was a huge success. Whether, Goga Bitadze, a 3-year, $25 million deal, Mo Wagner, a 2-year, $22 million deal, Gary Harris, 2 years, $15 million, Cole Anthony on his extension now, Wendell Carter's contract, Jonathan Isaac getting that bump up, even Kentavious Caldwell-Pope potentially making just $20 million this year. His contract will escalate on his 3-year, $66 million deal. The Magic are in a better spot now to push some chips in when the time comes. When that time is, I don't know. Who that player is more specifically, I don't know. But I think what we saw this offseason was Jeff Weltman displaying a lot of restraint and Jeff Weltman sticking to his principles. And again, there are reasons to be critical of Jeff Weltman. There are things that he's done, and we'll talk a little bit about some of that here in a minute. There are reasons to be critical, but I will give Jeff Weltman this much, and it's much more than we could have given Rob Hennigan. It's honestly much more than we could have given even Otis Smith and John Gabriel. Jeff Weltman has a vision and has things that he believes in to his core, and every decision he has made, for the most part, has played up to that core and that belief. He believes it is really important to have continuity, to have a lot of the same players back with the team over and over again. He believes that's important for a young team's growth and development. He is not chasing the quote-unquote sugar high of a playoff berth. He looked at last year's team and said, yes, we made some major progress, but this isn't the time to accelerate the timeline or to do something drastic just to chase something that's not there. We're still on the right track. We're still doing the right things. Now, so the Magic, no one is sitting here saying the Magic had a home run summer. I want to make that really clear. I don't think the Magic had a home run summer. I don't think anyone thinks the Magic had a home run summer. I think they got better. I absolutely think they are a better team now than they were in May. Or they will be a better team on Saturday when they can actually start signing some of these contracts. But they are, assuming everything goes as reported, they're a better team now than they were May 5th when they lost Game 7. Having said that, I don't think the Magic have meaningfully addressed the reasons why they lost that series to the Cavs. Other than to say, we are young, we will get better. And maybe that's enough. Maybe that is enough. Maybe adding an extra defender, doubling down on the identity and saying, let's just do what we did last year again and position ourselves to get better in the trade market. Maybe that's enough. Maybe it isn't. So I can understand fans being upset and saying, why didn't the Magic do more? Why didn't the Magic take a risk? Why didn't the Magic be willing to compromise something in order to address some of these needs? Because there are still holes on the roster. We're going to talk about them toward the end of the show. But ultimately, when you look around the league, and ultimately when I sit and think about what the Magic have done, the Magic got better. They didn't compromise themselves. They didn't back themselves in a corner. They left all their assets in place to go out and make that next big move. So to me, a lot of people have picked the Magic as winners of free agency for getting Kentavious Caldwell-Pope on a reasonable deal. Yes, 3 years, $66 million is a reasonable deal for a high-level starter, a player who is on the borderline of making the all-defensive team last year. The Magic probably have the best defensive backcourt in the league. I'll give you, maybe Shea and Luguentz Dort is up there. Maybe now Tyrese Maxey and Paul George is up there. The Magic have one of the best defensive backcourts in the league. I will say this. If the Magic end up facing the Cavs again in the first round, they might have enough to beat them this time because KCP is a better defender. Not that Gary Harris is a bad defender. KCP is a disruptive defender. He's big. And he's a much different challenge for Donovan Mitchell and a Darius Garland than Jalen Suggs and Gary Harris are. So the Magic, again, are better. At the end of the day, you want to improve. You want to get better. I think the Magic improved. And I think that's been the general reaction around the league to the Magic's offseason. Like I said, asking me what I believe, I do believe the Magic got better. I don't know if that will be reflective in their record. I think it's going to be a very different season. I think that there will be problem of more issues, which I'll talk about here in a minute. And I think that what this season is banking on is something worth gambling on. Internal growth, internal development, once again. But I also think the Magic could have taken some moves to test some things out, to see what they look like, to see how strong their foundation is, instead of just buttressing it up again. These are two different approaches. Neither approach is necessarily wrong. I don't think there was a way for the Magic to dramatically improve themselves. Minus, would DeJounte Murray do that? Maybe. And I could get being a little upset the Magic didn't put in the assets to go after DeJounte Murray, especially considering what he went for. Essentially 3 first-round picks, a young player, and a solid veteran. The Magic probably could have matched that offer, but very clearly the Magic didn't feel the need to do so yet. They kept their assets. They kept their package available that will make that they could use later on down the road. And that's going to have to happen here in the next year or so, especially since that Denver pick is going to be off the table next summer. To me, the Magic did do important things. To me, the Magic did get their work done. They did get better. But how much meaningfully better? To me, that's going to be the question all offseason or all season now. Because I do think as valuable as continuity is, and it is valuable. There's a big reason why the Magic were so successful last year. As valuable as that continuity is, I do think there are limits to it as well. I want to chat a little bit about what those limits to continuity are and how much the Magic are banking on internal development. We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by our friends over at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What drives you and the formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With more than 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you will always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home some huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. I want to thank you for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. If you're taking the long weekend, I truly appreciate you making us part of your long weekend. If you listen to our episodes over the July 3rd, July 4th time, really appreciate that. Make your next listen the dependable, always there for you, 24/7 sports streaming channel, Locked On Sports Today's program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories in sports from the local experts who know their team best. Hear from people like me who know their teams. They're not trying to shout at you. They're not trying to tell you what to think. They're giving you the expertise that comes from covering their team every day. Find this can't miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So we know one of the principles that Jeff Weltman has, and one of the things he really does value is continuity. It was something that we talked about a lot last summer when the Magic brought back their entire roster. They only added 3 new players, Anthony Black, Jet Howard, and Joe Ingles. This year, the Magic are adding only 2 players to the fold, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope and Tristan Da Silva. There is still one open roster spot left. Maybe by Saturday it will be filled. Maybe it'll be Markelle Fultz. Maybe it won't be. But the Magic are essentially bringing in only 2 new players to the roster. And look, I think that this is a good principle in general. If we saw this during the Tracy McGrady era. If you're constantly churning your starting lineup, if you're constantly churning your bench players, if you're adding 3, 4, 5 new players, it takes a while for everybody to learn each other. It takes a while for everybody to learn and understand the coach. And so now you're in a situation where, like last year, everybody coming in understands what Jamal Mosley is looking for. Everyone comes in understanding what they need to do to be successful. And they come in being able to teach the 2, 3, 4 guys, the 2 or 3 new guys, this is what we're looking to do. Everybody's on the same page at an earlier stage in the process. That's all a good thing. Just that is just generally a good thing. And would not surprise me if, again, the Magic get off to a pretty strong start. We'll see what the schedule looks like in about a month, a little bit more than a month probably. But we'll see whether the Magic can get off to a hot start again, whether they could do well in the in-season tournament again. We'll get that. We'll get our groups there probably there in the next couple of weeks. We will see if the Magic can do all these things again and repeat what they did last year. Again, so much of this season, frankly, is about proving this team can do it again. Yes, get to the second round. Yes, get home court advantage. Yes, do all those things, advance yourself. But at a baseline, what this season is about is proving they can do it again. And if they have the same roster, everybody knows what's up. Everybody knows what they're doing. As Mo Wagner made clear throughout the course of last season, he was always very, very open about this. Last season was not about last season. The work for last season did not start in October. It started 2 years ago when Jamal Mosley got here. There is a sense of ownership over this team, over its progress, and over what they can do and accomplish. That is a very, very real thing. And you can feel it. This is a close group. This is a tight-knit group. And that means something. Now, losing Joe Ingles is a big deal on that front because he's going to sign a one-year deal with the Minnesota Timberwolves. Joe Ingles is someone that is a connector, especially off that bench. Just keeps everyone together. As much as you guys hate saying this, and maybe the Magic do bring Markelle Fultz back, Markelle Fultz is a big piece of this puzzle too. He is someone that connects everybody. Everyone recognizes and respects the work that he puts in. Maybe we don't see it all the time on the court, but he is someone that is a glue guy in that locker room, and I think that does matter. Having said that, I do think there is a limit to the constant continuity that the Magic have had. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but things do go stale. We see it with coaches a lot, especially, just the voice starts to lose some luster. And people start to get used to and comfortable in routine, especially with young players. It can be sometimes hard to grow when you're just so comfortable. And so I think this is a balance the Magic have to have, and one they're obviously comfortable with sticking with continuity, sticking with the same roster, sticking with the same group. They're comfortable with this, and if they know, they know. But my concern is that there is a limit to this. That a second straight year with virtually the same roster, not that this team can't grow. Paolo Banchero will get better. Jalen Suggs will get better. Franz Wagner should get better. That three-point shooting should bounce back. There is no reason to think that the bet that the Magic are making on their internal growth won't pay off in some fashion. It may not be a straight line. Maybe Franz Wagner gets back to 35% shooting, but Jalen Suggs drops down to 35% shooting with his defense. That's going to be part of it. Maybe there's bench things that need to be worried about. I do worry about a just kind of things going stale, if that makes sense. I think about it this way. A buddy of mine asked me about this, do you really think they're running back the same roster? I was like, yeah, I think it could work, but I'm a little concerned, about it going stale. We saw this happen in 2007. The Orlando Magic had Grant Hill on their team. They made the playoffs for the first time with that young group. And they let Grant Hill walk in free agency to go sign Rashard Lewis. A lot of fans still hit me up when I talk about this and say Grant Hill should have come back for less money. And I tell them, no, the Magic didn't want Grant Hill back because they didn't want Dwight Howard and Jameer Nelson deferring to Grant Hill. They wanted Dwight and Jameer to take over leadership roles on the team. And that was never going to happen with Grant Hill still on the roster. Now, this roster is a little bit different, a little bit younger. Paolo and Franz are already taking on some of those leadership roles. But I still see some of the same issues arising. A lot of you are probably upset that Gary Harris is coming back because of his poor performance in the playoffs. But I'm sure you would also argue, or I would agree with this argument. There is a potential that the Magic will lean on the veteran Gary Harris and not give an opportunity to Jet Howard and not give an opportunity to Anthony Black. That should be a real concern. Not that the Magic want to wholly rely on unproven players, but it's easy to fall back into patterns. It's easy to fall back into that growth. That's one of the reasons why I don't think the Magic should re-sign Markelle Fultz. As much as important as I think he can be to that locker room, not only does that open a pathway for new players to kind of take on leadership roles, not having Markelle Fultz forces you to see what you have in Anthony Black. And obviously he's got to earn it. Everyone on this team has to earn their playing time. Nothing should be gifted to Anthony Black, to Jet Howard, to anybody. Everything has to be earned on this roster. Everything. And that's the way you want it. The Magic have some depth to allow for some open competition, to allow for these guys to go out and prove themselves. And maybe that's why the Magic didn't go chase a Buddy Hield or Gary Trent Jr. in free agency. Because A, they know what they're getting in Gary Harris, and B, if Gary Harris not working, Anthony Black or Jet Howard displacing Gary Harris, is it going to be the end of the world if you're not paying a 3-year whatever deal to Gary Trent or a 3-year whatever deal to Buddy Hield, whatever he eventually got from Golden State? This is the limit of continuity then. It's what happens if it gets stale. And look, we're going to know it and we're going to feel it when it happens. I also have some concerns about the problem of more. If you don't know what the problem of more is, it is a theory that Pat Riley posited or expressed most clearly, saying that once you experience success, everyone starts to be in it for their own success. They sacrifice a little bit for that initial success. But the struggle is, okay, now you've experienced success. Now you want more for yourself. Now you want more for your brand. There's outside influences that take away from the team. The Magic experienced success last year, no doubt about it. I do personally have some concerns that, okay, they know generally how they work together, but now Paolo is going to want to get it to 25 points per game, which he should. Now Franz is going to look for his own, all this stuff that you have to navigate and balance. But it is a little bit of an issue. So it is something to consider. It is a new element to this team. And adding in some guys who are new to the group, a little bit hungrier perhaps, that could help. Maybe I'm addressing things or concerned about things that are a year away. This is a very tight-knit group. The Magic have a really strong culture, a really strong team culture. And so maybe maybe my concerns here are not giving that enough credit. I certainly would agree that one of the things I was concerned about bringing in new players is how are they going to embrace the culture? Are they going to be good fits with this group? Because we all knew the Magic were not going to make more than 3 or 4 changes at that. So to have only 2, and one of them being a rookie, the Magic are going to hopefully quickly integrate these players into their system and find their way again. Again, so much of this season, and it's a small thing, I get it, but it is a thing. The Magic haven't proven they can do this again. They are not a perennial playoff team. They are a playoff debut team. And yes, they have the talent, they have the ability to do it again. But you don't know till you know. This team has to do it again. They got to start from 0-0, start from scratch, and do it all again. Be a top 5 defensive team, be a better offensive team, get to the playoffs again, win in the playoffs again. New matchup, old matchup, whatever it is, they've got to do it again. And if continuity is their ticket to do so, then it's their ticket to do so. So, obviously, the Magic did some work this offseason. A little bit of work. What holes remain on the roster and how much should we be concerned about it? We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. So the Orlando Magic obviously didn't do a whole lot. If they're only adding 2 players to their roster, they're not obviously filling in a ton of the holes that they have. They obviously add Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. We expect him to be the starting guard next to Jalen Suggs. They add Tristan da Silva. He gives them a 3-4 coming off the bench. So the Magic addressed some of their needs. We looked at the offseason. One of the needs that we certainly believed was the Magic needed a starting level guard. Check. Magic add a starting level guard to their team. Like I said, my ideal summer was use the majority of your cap room or use a good chunk of your cap room to add a starting level guard. Did that with Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. Then add a bench shooter. Magic did that. I was thinking Buddy Hield, Gary Trent Jr. Magic did that with Gary Harris. They add Gary Harris. They're eager to see if Jet Howard can step up to the plate. Okay, did that. Check. Then my other need, because I didn't love the point guard market here, my other need was to add a third center. They went and got Goga Bitadze. We know what we're getting from him. Check. So the Magic filled those kind of immediate needs that I had during the offseason. But obviously, the Magic could use some upgrades. And I think a lot of us look back at the playoffs. So certainly I look back at the playoffs. And the biggest hole on the roster is a lack of a point guard playmaker. A lot of us targeted Tyus Jones because he was someone who was a high assist, low turnover point guard who could hit threes, didn't necessarily need the ball in his hands. So he wouldn't take possessions away from Paolo, Banchero, and Franz Wagner, but he'd be able to set the table for them. In fact, Paolo Banchero said he would love for the team to get a table setter. And maybe the Magic are still about to do that. Maybe not. They still have one roster spot open. I don't believe they have any cap room, and I don't believe they have their mid-level exception anymore. After I'm done recording this, I'm going to kind of calculate the cap math on that. So that may be a future episode as well. But the Magic are essentially done. I'm not expecting any other signings this offseason, to be perfectly honest, other than maybe a veteran minimum or keeping that roster spot open for whatever reason. The Magic still need a playmaker. And honestly, I think if there is a potential weak spot that could hurt this team, it's at point guard. Because the Magic are going the season with Jalen Suggs as a starting point guard. And look, I think Jalen Suggs can take a step up. I think Orlando has done a really good job since his rookie year, kind of reining him in a little bit to get rid of some of the excesses of his turnovers and his wild shot making. Now that he had a really good year last year, maybe they loosen those reins. They trust his decision making a little bit more. And he shows us what made him a combo guard at Gonzaga. So yes, Jalen Suggs, I think, can get there. The real question is whether Anthony Black can get there. I think one of the difficult things that the Magic have is they are banking, I'd say pretty heavily, on Anthony Black being a player for this team. And Anthony Black being able to step into a much larger role for this team. I think that is one of the big storylines for the season, is the Magic have indeed cleared the path for Anthony Black to play a major role. And look, he earned it. I thought he should have gotten a lot more look at the backup point guard role last year. Marco Fultz was up and down. He was just reliable. You knew what you were getting from him every night. And you didn't always know that from Anthony Black. And especially after that game against the Knicks and then followed up with that game against the Pacers in February, he didn't look ready. His eyes looked a little big. He looked like a rookie in two critical games for the Magic that they lost. And Black was kind of relegated to the end of the bench for the rest of the season. Now they're betting, I feel like, pretty heavily on him to give the Magic very meaningful minutes. Now, Cole Anthony can step into that role too. Don't get me wrong. I think Cole Anthony can play some point too, but they love him in that off-ball role where he can where he can focus a little bit more on his scoring and a little less on the playmaking aspects. But a lot of this season is on Anthony Black. I hate to say it. A lot of it is on Anthony Black. And if he doesn't step up, the Magic are in a little bit of trouble with guard. I also think there's a little bit of a soft spot at forward. Now, we know Paolo and Franz can play both forward positions. Jonathan Isaac's behind him at the 4, and Tristan da Silva is going to play through the 3 or the 4. And I have a lot of confidence that Tristan da Silva is going to be able to fit in and find a role. But the Magic are a little undersized there. And while a lot of people would say, no, the Magic need to upgrade at center, we know a Wendell Carter, Mo Wagner, Goga Bitadze, 3-headed monster at center will work. And we know that if Wendell Carter is healthy, he can play a lot better than he did last year. So that is a position that the Magic may look to upgrade in the near future. That's not the position I'm worried about. I am a little worried that the Magic are thin on the front court, a little bit thin at forward. Because we know Jonathan Isaac, I think, will have a healthier season. I'd love to see him get to like 65 games this year. I like to see his injury restrictions released a little bit on him. But Jonathan Isaac is probably going to miss some time. They're still probably going to be injury managing him a little bit. Will he play more back-to-backs this year? I sure hope so. I'd like to see him play some back-to-backs this year. But he's going to be constantly monitored. And Tristan da Silva is going to step in some of those minutes. But if he's out, then the Magic are going to be forced to play some 2 big lineups with Wendell Carter playing some 4. And a lot of fans would probably welcome that. I'm not going to sit here and pretend otherwise. The Magic do have some versatility there. But the Magic, I think, are a little thin at the 4. And that's the other area that I'm very concerned about, heading into the season. Now, obviously, we got a long way to go. There's going to be two-way contracts being signed. The Magic have reportedly signed Trevelyan Queen to one of those two-way slots. Magic have two more two-way slots to fill. We'll see what the Summer League team looks like when we finally get the roster here, hopefully tomorrow, hopefully on Friday. But the Magic still have some holes they need to fill, I believe, in the roster. And obviously, they got a bevy of guards. And I think all of us can sense that consolidation trade is on the horizon. And like I'll probably argue on Monday, the Magic are better set up to make those trades now. And I think I argued it earlier today, but the Magic are better set up to make those trades now than they were before the season ended, before this offseason. But the Magic are about the same rosters they were last year, obviously. They're better. Like, again, I think they are better. But they're going to have a lot of the same problems and issues that they had last year. So are they meaningfully better? Are they home court advantage better? Are they second round better? I think they're going to need some things to break their way. And ultimately, and I know you're probably tired of me saying this point too, but it just keeps bearing repeating. Ultimately, the Magic are going to go as far as Paolo, Banchero, and Franz Wagner's improvements. Nothing else matters. Like the way the Magic set up this team and set up this offseason, if Paolo Banchero takes the leap from all-star to superstar, Franz Wagner takes the leap to all-star, Jalen Suggs is an all-defensive team player again, the Magic are going to be a better team, and they're going to get to where they want to go in the playoffs. And that's all that matters in the end, is those guys getting better and reaching their full potential. Everything else is, frankly, window dressing, and it's just the Magic trying to figure out how do we make their lives just a little bit easier. Well, I want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day. Every day, I want to thank you for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. Of course, find me on Twitter at @PhilipRR_OMD. Subscribe to the podcast and Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Himalaya, Google Play, Spotify, Odyssey, and all of them makes their own podcast to your podcast-enabled listening device. For latest on the Orlando Magic, be sure to check out OrlandoMagicDaily.com. You can follow us there on Twitter at @OMagicDaily. And for even more Orlando Magic content, go ahead and check my Patreon page, the Orlando Magic Hub. You can find that at patreon.com/Orlando Magic Hub. And as always, thank you for your support. Now that you're done listening to me, be sure to check out the Locked On Sports Today 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube and now available on Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. I hope everyone had a very good Independence Day, a great 4th of July. Hope all my friends in England were able to get out and vote. Voting is very, very important. So I hope everyone in England had a good election day. No better way to celebrate American independence than voting, I don't know. But I hope everyone had a great holiday weekend and is preparing for a great weekend as well. We will be back Monday. We'll preview Summer League, start getting into some Summer League stuff. Hopefully we'll have a roster because, they got to start practicing for that. We'll get to all that on our next episode of Locked On Magic. But until then, for Orlando Magic Daily and Locked On Magic, this has been Philip Rossman-Reich. We'll see you all again next time for another episode of Locked On Magic.